So down the leg side, now has that flicked something? It has. Billy Doctorow raises the finger, and Michael Clarke won't get his 100 here today. He tried to pull a ball down the leg side, and Pryor took the catch. So there is an opportunity for England that has been taken under the floodlights, and Michael Clarke will feel rather aggrieved, I think. But the players agreed to playing under floodlights, and a breakthrough for England. 474 for 5.
And a very good morning to you all from a cloudy Cardiff. The scoreboard, Australia 479 for 5. They lead England by 44. England, you may remember, made 435. And so Australia very much have got their noses, if not rather more than that, in front. We've got 2 days left. The only question mark is the weather. The forecast is not that good. And let me give it to you first of all. The forecast for today is a little light rain this morning, with more persistent showers likely this afternoon. And then tomorrow, some sunny intervals, but possible light showers in the afternoon. So I think we're going to be jolly lucky if we really get away with this. Anyhow, we'll keep our fingers crossed. Now, I've got with me Jason Gillespie, the former Australian bowler. But before we talk to him about the England bowling yesterday and the events of yesterday, I think it would be interesting to hear an England point of view. And earlier today, Alison Mitchell caught up with Otis Gibson, the England bowling coach, and it'll be interesting to hear what he had to say.
Otis, well, from the position that England are in here, does it feel very much as if England are going to be playing for a draw, in weather permitting as well?
Well, it's still 2 days to go, and anything can happen, you know. Obviously, at the moment, it would look that way, but you know, we have to try and remain positive, I suppose. A couple of quick wickets. They're only 44 ahead, so a couple of quick wickets give us a day and a half if we like to try and see where we can go in the game, you know. But I suppose if you were a betting man, you would probably put your money on a draw.
I mean, you've worked with the England bowlers a long time. Had some pretty tough times in the winter as well, bowling on sort of flat decks in the West Indies. But here, I mean, swing is a funny thing, isn't it? Can you put your finger on sort of why they haven't been able to get the ball swinging in the last, certainly the last 2 sessions yesterday? I
don't know. I really don't know. I mean, the guys are working hard on the ball in the field. We've talked about it. We've talked about the need to get it swinging and so on, you know, to help the likes of Jimmy and Brody as well. Fred is a little bit different. Fred hits the pitch a lot harder, you know, but certainly sort of the signs that we saw in the West Indies series earlier this summer, where we got it swinging and we were obviously very effective. We thought that would come into it here, but for whatever reason we haven't been able to get it to swing, and it's something that we're going to have to look at moving forward in the series.
In terms of the series, we've got back-to-back test matches now. How is that going to play out throughout the series in terms of wanting to keep bowlers like Andrew Flintoff fresh? There's not a lot of rest time between the series. Does somebody like Graham Onion sort of play a big part keeping him in the squad? Is there an idea that sort of rotation could even come into it?
Perhaps, you know, Graham did really well when he came in, and obviously it's good to have him in and around the squad because we know what he can do, you know. The likes of Andrew Flintoff, it's difficult to keep him out of the action once he's on the field. Obviously he's had his injury concerns and stuff like that, but he's a wholehearted performer, and once he's in the team and on the field, he wouldn't want to be rested or used in short spells. He wants to make a full contribution, you know, and it's very, very good to see him back. See him performing the way he did over the last couple of days on a flat surface, still running in and extracting bounce and good pace, you know, and causing problems for their batters.
Are you a bit concerned that there's very short turnaround time between now and Lords, and of course the bowlers spending sort of long, unproductive hours in the field here?
Not really. I think, you know, we spend a lot of time once we get off the field and doing recovery and stuff like that, and we've obviously got a big support staff doing that sort of thing and making sure that the players are getting the right sort of fuel in the bodies and stuff like that, ready for the next day and the next week, if you like, you know. So we know between now and next test at Lords what we need to do recovery wise to get the guys back in a good shape for that Lords test.
Okay, so thank you.
Thanks.
Well, I've got with me, as I was telling you, Jason Gillespie, the former Australian fast bowler. Jason, the England bowlers didn't get it quite right yesterday. What did you think went wrong?
Oh, look, I just think the length wasn't quite what they would have liked. Look, England have got some very good young bowlers in their stocks, and I just felt they were probably about 5% below what we all know they can do. which is hitting that good line, good length, being patient and frustrating the Australian batters on what has been proven to be a pretty benign surface for the fast bowlers.
I thought the two spinners really had quite disappointing. I thought Panesar was the best. Swann never really quite looked like it, and they never put the Australian batsmen under pressure. They let them rotate the strike, didn't they? They never really got on top of them.
Look, there was probably far too many four balls blowers. Swann especially, a few too many full tosses, short balls. Maybe that was just the Australians using their feet so well, especially Michael Clarke, who uses his feet wonderfully well against the spin. Marcus North tended to play a bit more from the crease, but used the sweep shot to good effect and the aggressive shots through the offside. So, look, probably not their best day, but look, the Australians won't be taking them lightly, and sure they'll be looking to bounce back and bowl well today.
And I think Stuart Broad was a little bit disappointing.
Look, Stuart Broad probably didn't hit his areas, that good line, good length, just on outside off stump. I think, as a general rule, he's probably been about a yard too short in this game, and if he can pitch it up and try and get the Australian batsman to play, looking to play positively through mid-off cover region, then he can bring his keeper and his slip fielders into play.
And, of course, they were up against some remarkably disciplined Australian batting. Ponting played a truly wonderful captain's innings, and, of course, Simon Katich was terribly important. And earlier this morning, Alison Mitchell caught up with Simon Katich, and it'd be interesting to hear his slant on how things went.
Well, Simon, I guess you'll be hoping that the rain stays away today. How do you assess the chances of forcing a result here?
Yeah, look, we've still got a lot of hard work to be done. We're only 44 runs in front, but today with five partnerships to come, if we can push on to 150 to hopefully even maybe a 200-run lead, depending on how well we bat, then that could really put England under some pressure. But saying that, there's still a lot of hard work to be done to get to that point.
Do you think 150, 200 would just give you enough of a lead to bowl them out?
Oh, look, I'm not saying that we'd bowl them out for less than that, but I'm saying that it would put them under some pressure then if we were to have them sort of 4 or 5 down for that amount of runs, and the tail's under a bit of pressure, and obviously then we've still got another innings to try and knock off some runs if we've got time to do that.
What's the feeling in the Australian dressing room about the floodlights here? Obviously, Michael Clarke fell late last night, but that's a new experience, certainly in England, having floodlights on for Test cricket. Yeah,
it is. I think we've experienced it a little bit over the years in Sheffield Shield cricket back home, and it certainly does add a different dimension to the game. It tends to probably favour the bowling team more than anyone. I guess whenever you come out for a short period of time, it's always hard for the batsman to sort of get back in again and know that you might only be out there for half an hour. So generally, as a batting group, you don't have a lot to gain from that situation, whereas the bowling team generally does, because you might be able to pick up a wicket or two.
Yeah, what did you make of the England bowling attack over the last day and so?
Yeah, look, I thought they stuck to the task pretty well. I think given that it's a good batting wicket, and we've managed to dig in and get some good partnerships going, and have made it as tough as we can for them, they've stuck to their task pretty well.
And for yourself personally, to get the century here in 2005 Ashes, obviously after that things were very, very different for you. And how did that feel to get the 100? Yeah,
look, it was a very special moment. It meant a huge amount to me, and all those people that have supported me, family and friends, and to get one first test is really nice, and hopefully now I can make the most of the form and really carry that on throughout the series.
And just what has changed in that time for you? What are the things that you've worked on to change?
Well, I had to go away and sort of reassess where I was at. A lot of people probably had written me off and thought my career was over at this level, but I still believe that I had a role to play and didn't give up, and I guess the hard work's paying off now, and hopefully that can continue.
Okay, well done on the 100. Good luck for the rest of the game.
Thanks very much.
Jason, was that the best innings you've seen Simon Katich play for Australia?
Look, he was very good. I'd probably put it up there with his 125 against India at the SCG on a turning wicket against Anil Kumble. He was very good. But this innings, start of an Ashes summer, it was very good for Simon to get off to a great start. He didn't have the best time in 2005. Certainly showed that what a class player he is, and a very experienced campaigner he is at the top of the Australian order.
And lucky for him, in a way, to have such a determined Ricky Ponting at the other end.
look, to have Ricky Ponting at the other end, he can just go out there and play his natural game. Simon, I thought that the shots he didn't play really told just how well he was seeing the ball. He left a lot of balls go, especially against Andrew Flintoff when he came around the wicket, tried to get him playing outside off stump. I thought he batted beautifully.
But so far this really, to my mind, has been a match of two captains. Ponting determined not to leave England, leaving the Ashes behind this year. Very much set out his mark in this first test innings of 150. I've never seen a man so disappointed getting out for 150. Then Strauss, Andrew Strauss. Perhaps he didn't have the best of days. Perhaps a captain can only captain as well as his bowlers let him.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think that, as we mentioned before, the England bowlers probably 5% below their best, and a captain has to adapt to that. So Andrew Strauss, probably defend him a little bit. He had to probably go a little bit more defensive than he would have liked, but I'm sure he'll be looking to G up his bowlers and they get off to a very good start today. Hopefully, for England's sake, they can get a couple of wickets. From the Australian point of view, I want to see our boys continue on going as they are.
And I think the chap who's had, the England bowler's had quite a good game here, although he's not here in Cardiff, is Steve Harmison. I think there's every chance we'll see him, or you'll have him bowling against you lot at Lord's later next week.
Look, he'll definitely come into the calculations for the England selectors. I think Graham Onions will be a big show. I can't see England playing two spinners at Lord's. I think we'll see an extra quick there, and it could be either Harmison or Onions, or even both.
Well, here we are in Wales. When nothing's happening, they always have someone to sing. Maybe we should start singing, I don't know. Anyway, the match is in the situation it is. 44 runs ahead, Australia, with 5 wickets in hand. The weather is the question mark. How do you see the outcome now?
Look, I think the odds are on a draw, blowers. I think that the weather will play a big part. If we get 2 full days of cricket in, and Australia will be looking to get hopefully a 200-run lead, they can put some real pressure on England. But I think the weather is going to beat us all here in Cardiff, unfortunately, so I would back a draw.
Well, of course, you know this. You've played for Glamorgan, so, I mean, the Welsh weather is nothing strange to you. But, of course, if Australia do get a bit of a lead, 100, 120, 150, and then get a couple of early English wickets, a bit of panic can set in, and who knows?
Oh, look, you're exactly right. The runs on the board's always crucial going into days 4 and 5. If you do have the first innings runs, second innings runs are always much more difficult to accumulate than first innings. So Australia will be looking to get as many runs as they can in their first innings.
Now, one thing we haven't talked about, the umpires are not coming out yet, we haven't actually mentioned the pitch. How do you think it stood up, and how do you think it will play over the next 2 days?
Look, it's been copying a little bit of criticism. It's probably been a little bit slow for an ideal test match, but look, there's been 15 wickets fall in the first 3 days. I think we'll see a few more wickets fall, subject to the weather. It's taking a bit more turn, a bit slow turn. I think we'll see some. We saw Paul Collingwood come in and bowl some Don Shepherd's, the great Glamorgan bowler of yesteryear, bowling some. They were actually biting and turning, and I think someone like Collingwood could play a bit of a role on a wicket like this, day 4 and 5.
And we also saw yesterday a couple of balls keep uncomfortably low. Australia were lucky that they weren't straight. And I dare say we may get an increasingly uneven bounce, although, as you say, slowly.
Well, you're exactly right, and I think the bowling plans will be day 4 and 5 as a general rule in Test cricket. You tend to bowl straighter with the uneven bounce, because basically if the batsman misses, you hit either their stumps or their pads.
Now, we got the umpires going out, so we'll very shortly go upstairs. But these 2 umpires have been very much not outers, haven't they? What is your feeling about that? Do you think cricket is actually not the best game when umpires are going to say not out to almost everything?
Oh, look, I think the umpiring's been pretty good this game. I think we saw a caught behind Michael Clarke, gloved one behind, and Billy Doctrove gave that out. He also gave out an LBW off for James Anderson against Simon Katich. So, look, I think they've been pretty good. Pass mark.
Well, there we are. The players are out, the umpires are out. Let's go up to the commentary box now and join, first off, Jonathan Agnew.
Thank you, Henry, very much indeed. And to Jason, and good morning to you all. Under cloudy skies, here we all are at Cardiff for the 4th day of this first Test match. England's players walking out into the middle, following the umpires. There's still a few members of the ground staff out there. Fingers very much crossed as far as the weather is concerned. The forecast has been a bit variable. I mean, it's a bit difficult actually to accurately predict what we have, but we're keeping our fingers crossed. And we now welcome our Radio 4 long-wave listeners to Cardiff. As I was saying to our Sports Extra listeners, cloudy skies, and we're trying to work out exactly what the forecast has in store for us today, which isn't easy. We are probably going to get some rain at some stage. Whether it's light or heavy and what time it's going to come is really all a matter of some debate. So we're keeping our fingers crossed. We're going to start on time now anyway, without any floodlights or anything on. The wind direction appears to have changed a bit. Whether that means anything significant or not. But the flag up on the dressing room there to our left, pointing absolutely the other direction to it has been on the first 3 days. 4.79 for 5 is the score. Of course, with North on 54, Haddin on 4. Looking forward to seeing him batting. He's someone who plays a lot of shots, of course, not necessarily shy and retiring, I don't think, Brad Haddin. And of course the lead for Australia is 44, and England have to get among these wickets. The crowd coming in. I know some on trains and that sort of thing still waiting to get into Cardiff. Some empty seats to our left in particular, but they'll soon be taken, I would imagine. James Anderson's going to bowl the first ball of the day, and overs wise with this ball, it's a bit hard to tell off that score box. I think Malcolm might be able to enlighten us as to how far away we are from new balls and that sort of thing. It's always good to have some idea, but they took it straight away, didn't they? So it's 160 presumably. So are we 21 overs away from another one? We are. Okay, so that's something that'll be in Andrew Strauss's mind round about lunchtime, if they haven't whittled them out by then. Victor, a very thoughtful looking Victor, quite a tidy looking Victor with a jacket on, is sitting beside me. We'll have his thoughts in a minute. In goes Anderson. The first ball of the day is flicked away out to mid-wicket, and Haddin scores 1 run to extend the lead to 45. 480 for 5. Good morning, Victor.
Morning. Well, we've been studying the weather, and we've been talking about biblical storms hitting Cardiff on Saturday, but actually it's better than has been predicted over the last 2 days. And I reckon if the Aussies, they'd probably take 3 or 4 hours cricket today, in which case they could put themselves in a very strong position, and England are going to have to fight like fury to make sure they get out of Cardiff all square.
Yeah, I accept entirely that is the likely form of events. There was a bit of a quarrel with Jeffrey last night. I say, well, hang on a minute. I mean, if England do get these last 5 wickets relatively cheaply, well, and then bat well themselves, and it doesn't rain very much, then Australia would still have some batting to do themselves. When England aren't entirely out of this, here's Anderson outside the off stump, and it's ignored by North. I mean, I'm saying it's only a 10-20%er, but
well, that's true. But
the door is still fractionally open.
Well, just about, but there are a few conditional clauses. I'm sure this is what Jeffrey said to you. There are 1 or 2 conditional clauses.
No, he didn't say that.
Did he not?
He accused you of being on the booze.
Oh, right. Well, if England can get 5 wickets for 30 runs...
50 runs?
Well, 50 runs, that's quite a deficit, but you haven't felt they're going to do that?
No, that's one of your conditional clauses. Anderson bowls, forward comes North, a solid-looking left-hander. That's Collingwood who fields in the covers. And there's no run. 480 for 5, but the Strauss still got 2 slips in the gully. I mean, he still suggests.
Well, his best way back into the game at the moment is to obviously bowl Australia out if he can, and he's got to attack when he can. One time you can attack is right at the start of the day when you know the batsmen are just going to be easing themselves back into the crease. Attack as much as you can without giving runs away. That's the secret of captaincy, really.
Anderson bowls, that's swinging away. North gets behind it. Over there by Collingwood. In the covers, 480 for 5. The lead is 45. Certainly people a little bit slower to get into the ground today than they have been on the previous 3 days. Looking at the grandstand over to our right there, still lots of upturned blue and yellow seats. In fact, the yellows, of course, being the daffodils, part of the pattern of the seats there. Anderson working hard on the ball. Not a bad morning, actually, you'd think, to be a swing bowler today. The sun's trying to peek out. It isn't cold. There's cloud cover. And of course, rain around, so you'd think the ball would swing this morning. In he goes, bowls outside the off stump. Bit of a dribbler, that one. It bounced a second time. Pryor took it tidily. And there's no one. Blowers returns in triumph after that opening 15 minutes of the programme.
I presume, I didn't hear it all, Sally, but I think I'm right in saying it was probably a tour de force.
Well, it was. It was in that it started on time and ended on time, and it sort of clung to the airwaves for the 15 minutes in between that. It was tremendous.
Very good. Can't ask for much more than that, can you?
That's all you want.
No.
480 for 5. In goes Anderson. Bowls and back goes North, pushing into the offside. Collingwood's there at short extra cover. Tidy opening over. Wasn't particularly threatening about it, but it was on target. But England desperate for wickets. The deficit 45. They've got to get into this lower order. But it still has some batting to come. Mitchell Johnson, as we know, and Nathan Hauritz. Not too clued up on Siddle's or Hilfenhaus's credentials, but
Siddle, we know, gets the night watchman role, but that doesn't tell us that much.
No.
Hauritz has got runs on this tour. He got runs against Sussex down the order, though his test average is modest. Siddle averages at 11 in test cricket. Only played 7 matches. Hilfenhaus averaged 7, but he's only played 3 matches.
Yeah, exactly. Well, a bit of a surprise maybe that Stuart Broad is going to bowl from the bottom end, and maybe Strauss is going to have a look first. I'd like to see if either Swann or Monty were in slightly better form than they were yesterday, but it's going to be seam at both ends.
He did get that ball late last night, admittedly, when it was all a bit damp. He got that, the ball that got Clarke out did bounce more than anticipated, and more we've been accustomed to seeing. And this is the opening pair. Have a look. I think you've got to be, really ready to chop and change and just try and find that partnership of bowlers. As a spinner, you want to come on before the batsman is in his comfort zone, having been out there for 40 minutes or something. So a couple overs perhaps, and if nothing happens, get a spinner on early in an aggressive manner rather than just in a containing manner.
2 slips a gully, a point, extra cover, mid-off, mid-on. Monty's back on the hook there, catching, and there's a long leg. In comes Broad, bowls and Haddin brushes that away. It's going to go for 4. Thump, the ball hits the hoardings below us. Billy Doctrove makes his first umpiring gesture of the morning. Very relaxed looking boundary 4 signal towards sort of Portakabin on stilts down at the far edge is where the scorers live in this match. It's like one of those old television commentary boxes.
Yeah, that's who's up there, wouldn't it?
Yes, they're in there. Sort of thing that Peter Walker and John Arlott used to sit in those Sunday League games of yesterday. A green one. Camouflage against the trees. In comes Broad, bowls on the off stump just outside maybe, and Haddin shuffles into line, plays into the offside. Collingwood very busily picks up fields, throws aggressively to Matt Pryor. Now where's Flintoff off to? He's running from second slip to mid-wicket. Yes, it's where the game has changed a bit, in that unless they really are, well, it's a curious setup, this, and that if they are convinced that Haddin's going to hook in the air to deep square leg, why put Monty out there? Broad bowls, and Haddin goes back, plays to the bowler, and if you don't think he's going to hook,
why put anyone there?
Have him up, saving the single just in front of square, and then have your mid-wicket at second slip.
Yep, it's a sign of age, but just about every cricketer of our generation and earlier look at these fielders on the square leg boundary right from the start of play and think, why? It's become a sort of as much a formula as having a man at deep backward square as is to have perhaps a first slip.
Yeah, it's a strange field. In comes Broad, bowls, that's the bounce. It does go for the hook. It goes flying over Matt Pryor, and Cook can't stop it again. So another boundary. He did go for the hook. He took it on, but again makes you wonder why they've got Panesar in that position at deep square leg. Not guaranteed to drop it, of course, but I would think if I was bowling, I'd prefer to see Anderson or somebody out there.
It's one hell of a shot to hit it at him too. I'd have thought if he's out there for the hook, you'd think he'd become much finer, wouldn't you? Anyway, but he did get bowled. I mean, he takes it on, old Haddin, doesn't he?
So one slipper gully, 3 in the offside, mid-on, mid-wicket, deep square leg, and a long leg. That's the field. As Broad has conceded 2 boundaries, comes in, bowls, and Haddin defends this, playing back to the bowler. And Broady, well, I heard the shout there, well done, Broady. Hurls the ball at the stumps. Actually misses, and it's collected by Pryor. He's a bristler, is Broad. He can get a bit worked up at times. He's always trying something different. I saw he ran in behind the umpire yesterday from round the wicket, deliberately hiding himself, if you like. There was that one in the 2020 where he ran in and then gestured as he was moving the fielder as he was running in, for which he got a slap wrist for. And he comes again. Long, straight run, and that's on middle and leg, play to mid-on. Now that's the end of his first over of the day. 488 for 5. So the lead is building up, 53.
It's raining at Worcester.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, well, maybe that's the drizzle that we had earlier on today.
So Australia's women can't resume their innings on 271 for 7.
I wouldn't mind if it absolutely threw it down with rain after play ended today, because we've talked a lot about the seagulls and the car park. Well, I have to say, this has to be a record breaker. I mean, I could hardly see my car under the mountain of it this morning. What a mess. In goes Anderson, bowls outside the off stump. North plays no stroke. And they must have car washes every 200 yards in Cardiff. Is yours similarly affected?
Well, yes, I think there is.
I'm not taking it personally.
No, I don't know. I think they've attacked not just your car. They haven't zoomed in, seen that familiar number plate, and thought that's where we're going to attack.
Well, it's very nasty. That's what they're doing in the night, obviously. They're not sleeping. Anyway, Anderson's got his hands on his hips. Collingwood, I think, was assuming the role of ball shiner there for a while. 488 for 5. Yardist joining us. Cloudy but dry at the moment. We had some rain overnight. And Anderson's on his way again. Bowls outside the off stump, but just moved away a shade from the left-handed North. Again, Collingwood, who seems to have fielded almost every ball so far, is there at extra cover. Interestingly, he does appear to have relinquished the point position to Bopara, hasn't he?
Yeah. We've seen him in strange positions.
Well,
he
mid-off
fields
and things, isn't he?
Yeah, mid-off. He fields at first slip to the spinners, which hasn't kept him very busy so far.
No.
He's only the third slip, if required, for the quick bowlers.
Anderson is outside the off stump. And no stroke from North.
I discovered something about Marcus North. Overnight, I got an email from a chap called Ray Robinson from Bayswater Morley Cricket Club in Western Australia, which was the club of Bob Massey.
Oh, yes.
And Bruce Reid.
And Victor Marks.
Yeah, but probably more pertinently, Marcus North.
Right.
And he was obviously proud that another bloke from Baysy was making a mark in the Australian team.
So what did you learn then?
I learnt that Marcus North plays great cricket at Bayswater Morley in Western Australia, which is a club that I've represented, and so is all these other people I've mentioned. That's all I've learnt. Greetings to Ray if you're still up.
Anderson bowls, short of a length, and North must have flicked that into the leg side, doesn't time it. Was fielded by Anderson. Well, that was gripping, Victor, thank you. That's really got people on the edge of their seats. Good. Oh, now being product, we've got to mention this cake, which has arrived today. I mean, it is the cake to end all cakes. If someone can create a better cake than this in the summer, well, there is your challenge. In goes Anderson, over the wicket, bowls short, pulled by North, down to deep backward square leg. Panesar's first touch of the day, there he goes, picking it up, lobbing it back. This is an absolutely, I mean, it's a creation. You can't call it a cake. It's a masterpiece.
I don't think we'll ever be able to eat it.
No.
It's a shame to dismantle it.
I mean, it's a cricket field, of course. It comes. We've met the people responsible, Guy and Sarah. Guy's actually one of the buggy drivers here, buggying people about, and so they're actually working on the ground. This is a masterpiece. It's a cricket field with a scoreboard. It's a slightly optimistic-looking scoreboard, in that having dismissed Australia for 27, England are 501 for no wicket. In goes Anderson, and this is played off the back foot. And, a bit of a misfield there. And it's unusual, it's Collingwood as well. And he didn't pick it up, and they've stolen a single. Very cheeky. Collingwood looks rather cross. But he came rushing in, didn't pick it up. 489 for 5. But the tour de force really is the commentary setup, in which the detail is remarkable. The two victims, as it were, are me and Henry. Henry looks absolutely as you'd expect Henry to look, with his hat on, Wisdom in front of him, the ashes urn, the cake, 2 books littered about. I mean, the detail is absolutely astonishing. I think I may have eaten 1 or 2 pork pies more than I think I have done in there, but it's a very smart pink shirt, and it's an absolute masterpiece. There are photographs of this around. In comes Broad, bowls on the off stump, back goes Haddin, playing it to extra cover, 490 for 5. And well, if you go to bbc.co.uk/sport and look at the cricket page, then there are pictures at the bottom of that page, and you'll find them up there and elsewhere around. But there's the picture. I mean, it's a remarkable picture. I mean, I think Blowers looks possibly a little bit like Fireman Sam. I mean, only because it's a yellow hat. But he's got his glasses on. Here's Broad bowling a very high bouncer, and Pryor couldn't take it cleanly. That was far too high. It is a wide. I think Billy Doctor's right, actually. It would have taken some of Tony Gregg's size to have played a shot at that. But there we are. I mean, apart from the temptation of decapitating Henry, or indeed me, which maybe 1 or 2 people might like to do, I don't see how on earth we're going to beat this. It's simply... It is magnificent. So there is your challenge. Kate Baker's out in TMS land. Have a look at that, and if you can beat it, well, we'd love to see it. Broad from the river end bowls another bouncer, and is that going to be a wide again?
Should be.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I can see what he's doing. He's got to hurl it in very short. He's got to get it up high, so that Haddin, who appears to be a happy hooker, hooks it up in the air. But so high.
It's a horrible looping...
Yeah.
Tennis ball bouncer, about 2 or 3 feet above Haddin's helmet.
Yep, that's a wide. 492 for 5. The lead 57, and now Haddin pulls away. Broad's on his way. He looks rather cross, and Broad's having a grumble now to umpire Doctrove. Monty is still in the position down there that you'd think, with this barrage, this attack, you would want.
He's not going to. Well, he'll get caught Panesar in a second, but I can't believe if he's going to hook a bouncer, it's going to go to Monty. He's too straight, don't you think?
Well, he's twitching a bit, Monty. He's just drying his hands there. He's outside the off stump, driven for 4 through extra cover. That's the answer from the batsman under these circumstances. No nonsense. A good thumping extra cover drive. One of the ground staff appears down there and tosses the ball back out of extra cover. It's not going England's way this morning. Not going to plan.
He's not. I think Broad is in some confusion. We mentioned this last night as to how to bowl on this pitch, and he doesn't know. There's 2 options. He could try and bowl very economically, sort of using McGrath as his model, or he's trying to everything, bounces, slower balls.
There's Broad, pushed away for a single. Haddin calling his partner through. 497 for 5.
And it's not worked well for him. He's gone, if you like, for the bold option, pursuing wickets, hunting wickets, bouncers, bad bouncers actually today, off cutters, and he hasn't imposed any pressure on the batsman in terms of keeping him down there and wondering where the next runs come from. And I'm not sure he's taken the right option. It's hell for leather in pursuit of wickets, or just bowl dry and prey on their patience. He's gone for the first option most of the time during this innings. His figures suggest that it hasn't been necessarily the right one to take.
So around the wicket to North. There's again a man out. It's a 7-2 field. This 7 offside. He bowls and North forward, drives to mid-on. And there's no run there. Trevor writes from London. Aggers, the only bird that's killing all of our small birds by robbing their nest of eggs is the magpie. The only birds that magpies are frightened of are seagulls. I love it when the weather turns ugly and the seagulls move inland to the Thames and get rid of the magpies. Please leave them alone.
Well, you haven't actually been pursuing them.
No, I just wish
you've given them a bit of a verbal barrage.
Leave my car alone, that's all. Otherwise, that's fine, but that's a terrible mess. Up comes Broad and bowls outside the off stump. North plays no shot, 497 for 5. And they've gone somewhere today. There were lots of them around yesterday, circling round more like vultures than seagulls. There's not one to be seen now. Got St John Harris, get washing the car, I know. Doesn't do it any good. He's a chisel rather than a mop. This is Broad around the wicket, bowls, and this is dabbed away into the offside. North will pick up another run, picked up there by Bopara. 498 for 5. That's the end of the over. No success for England today, and haven't looked like it, frankly, in those 20 minutes. Australia calmly building their lead. 498 for 5, with North on 56, Haddin on 19. More thoughts from Victor. Not quite as grumpy as yesterday, Victor.
Oh, yeah.
Good into tape, no, OK. And then it's going to be Jim Maxwell.
Well, the first points today are still going to Australia. North has been fairly subdued, but Brad Haddin, with a bit of luck, he's had a couple, or one top-edged hook over the keeper for 4. He's also played one sumptuous cover drive off Broad, who's trying to breathe fire, like a Welsh dragon, but hasn't really convinced. His bounces have been too short, and he did present that driving opportunity for Haddin, who leapt upon it. And he's raced away, as he tends to do. He doesn't score slowly, Haddin. He's got 19. And we've got Jim.
Victor, good morning.
Morning.
How are you?
I'm well.
Yes. Cardiff's going well, I have to say. Great hospitality, lots of fun. And good weather, mainly, so far. Now, it's Anderson from the Cathedral Road end. He goes up and bowls the ball that's pushed away very decisively by Marcus North towards short cover. Australia trying to push on this morning, and you would imagine, as Victor suggested, that their main hope of doing that is Brad Haddin, as well as North's played. As Haddin can play the exotic, exuberant, sometimes brilliant shots, but got to pick the right one to go after, and they'll drop the odd delivery short to tempt him, I'm sure. As Anderson pitches up at North, respectfully forward. He said, how do you get as much extravagance in from North as you might from Haddin?
No, that's true, but they've bowled more tightly to North. I mean, Haddin is the sort of player too that kind of winds bowlers up even before he gets going. They think he's going to go for me, so I'm going to bounce him, he's going to get caught hooking, whereas when they've bowled to North, they've bowled a line and length in the knowledge that if they do that, well, they can keep him under control, if nothing else.
2 slips a gully, the short cover. He bowls a ball that's left alone outside the off stump. North watchfully going forward. So he's just going to play his game for the time being. It might change if wickets fall. But England just trying to keep a hold on things here and make sure Australia don't race to an impressive, awkward lead quickly. Anderson just getting a bit of angle at the left-hander, maybe coming into the pads occasionally, pitches up, driven back off the boot of Anderson that ricochets down towards mid-off, where it's fielded by Kevin Pietersen.
Malcolm Ashton, he twitters as well, you know. They're all at it. He had a Twitter this morning from someone who pointed out that North was the only compass point to play Test cricket. Why they never picked Ray East, I don't know. New Zealand had a Southie.
Southie, yeah, he's around. There's never, yes. Anderson bowls short. He pulls that away. That's a good stroke. It's going out through straightish mid-wicket towards the boundary. It hits the rope for 4. Well, Anderson sort of dropped it short with a bit of pace, but not much venom. And the ball stood up off the pitch. And North stood tall to pound it away. And the 500 comes up for Australia. 5 for 502. And Marcus North, with that excellent counter to a short ball, is 60. More of Anderson. He bowls outside the off stump and bowls with a bit of intent there, like making the admission. Why did I do that? With 2 men on the onside? No, I've got to bowl to this offside field, so he clearly got across the bows to finish off the over. But Australia on by 23 this morning in as many minutes.
Yeah, Broad's going to continue. I might favour one of the spinners, actually, probably Panesar, early on, to use him. It could well be that the spinners will have to be used in a fairly defensive mode. The only time they can bowl with some attacking intent, unless they get wickets, England, is to bowl them now. And I think I might like to have Panesar bowling, trying to bottle up Haddin, make him play some big shots. But he's sticking with his cricket bowlers at the moment. Collingwood's having a long chat with Stuart Broad, Strauss, sorry, it's the captain, who's struggled this match. He got his wicket last night, but it's only one, and he's gone for 117 in his 28 overs. Just not what we're looking for. It's drizzling in Porthcawl, 20 miles west of Cardiff. They better get a move on, Jim.
Yes. Well, I'll tell you.
Is that the direction of Porthcawl? Because away to our left it's raining. Oh, right, I'm looking east.
You're looking the wrong way?
Well, it's raining over there.
It's not raining here at the moment. There's a short mid on. There's no slip as Broad bowls and Haddin defends a ball that's pushed in at the line of middle and leg, and it goes away down the onside. So Strauss anticipating that Haddin may take the bowling on. He's got the deep backward square, a man bang on the line at deep square, no slip, no third man.
There hasn't been, that I can remember, a conventional slip catch taken in this match. Is there?
Don't recall. Broad bowls. Back he goes, played away on the offside. There was, Panesar was caught by Ponting. It had second slip off Hauritz, but off the pace bowlers.
Yeah. There was Strauss who was gloved and the ball ballooned into the slip cordon, but not a nick off a quick bowler that's been taken at first, which is unusual after 3 days of Test cricket.
Keeper, haven't there? And there are a few nicks that fell short, but no. It tells you something about the pitch too, I suppose. There's Broad bowls and Haddin's back defending away on the onside. We've got the weather map here, and Cardiff is fairly close to this unhappy weather, is it not? Oh, I see. It's more over Ireland at the moment. But it's actually, it looks at that weather map. Yes, I see. I've got my ball bearings here. It's a fair way from us at the moment. All right. Yeah. So good thing we're not playing in Ireland. Maybe that's another ECB venue to be considered. But here's a Broad bowling now, and it's defended by Haddin out in front of him. Where would you play in Ireland if you were to pick a venue for a Test match? Next, 4 years' time, first Ashes Test? Dublin, I Belfast, suppose. Where would you go?
Dublin, probably.
Dublin?
I think so.
Yeah.
They used to... Well, the parallels are there. There's some huge rugby crowds.
Lots of
Dublin.
Lots of Aussies playing for Ireland.
Yeah, I think why not?
Yeah. Keep moving it around. It's worked pretty well here so far as Broad bowls and Haddin defends down towards mid-off. But they're going to have to do something about the pitch if they're going to keep playing Test matches here. This is as dead as a dodo, isn't it?
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah.
I'm not sure where I have a slight quibble with Cardiff, although you've got to whisper it because the Welsh get very... the logistics is terrific. It's fantastically friendly. The stadium looks good. But do they pay enough attention to the most important patch, the playing surface?
Broad bowls and Haddin looks to drive. He can't get a run there. He was just checked up by the ball not coming as he forced it away down towards Anderson at mid-on. That's a maiden over, bowled by Stuart Broad. Yes, you'd have to say there's ticks in every box about this place other than two. One, there are not enough loos. I saw a 100-yard queue for the boys yesterday. Goodness knows how the girls are going if they have to. And the pitch. That's not not right. And you can say this about a lot of traditional test match grounds around the world as well at the moment. But pitches, everyone talks about what to do to make test cricket more interesting in all sorts of places.
And
pitches are the main.
I'm right with you. I'm absolutely right with you. It's the most important part of any international venue. You wouldn't go and play, well, you might do in the Ryder Cup, I don't know, but you wouldn't play an Open Championship or anything other than an arena which provides the ideal venue to test golfers' ability. Likewise, you really have got to study the nature, the characteristics of the pitches you play on if you want to make test cricket as vibrant and entertaining as possible. And that requires an equal contest between bat and ball and a fair bit of life in the pitch, if you like. You don't want too many. We wouldn't want a series played at Cardiff. We almost had a series played at Cardiff in the Caribbean recently, actually.
We'll have to bring back timeless tests if you're going to play on bland surfaces. As Anderson pitches up and he's driven down to mid-off. Pietersen's there to field, and it's another dot ball. So at the moment, the rain, according to Agger's weather chart, appears to be a fair way away, and we'll just concentrate on the play. But the other interesting thing about all of that is the programming of this series, and it's a very unfortunate clash next week that the Open Championship and the Test at Lords are at the same time. Anderson dolls short and he's pulling, but he's not. He got an edge into his pad. Maybe just didn't quite come on there. Lower bounce, got a nick into his pad as he tried to pull it. And there's a big inviting gap on the onside as there are only two men there, deep backward square and at mid-on. The bugler's out. Yes, it's very unfortunate next week that we've got clash of two major events in the British summer. But that's the way it is. Anderson bowls now, pitching up and pitching a bit wider.
You sound like an Aussie visitor to England who would have, and I don't blame you, who would have liked to watch the Lord's Test match and then spent that week off watching the Open.
My word.
Yeah.
So especially after last year's drama with Greg Norman. There's always the hope that there'll be an Aussie or two around on the final day, but even if there isn't, there's plenty of good golfers to watch. As Anderson runs in again to bowl wide of the off stump. And as Adam Scott's having a good time in the Scottish Open, he's only a couple off the lead. Retief Goosen, I was reading this morning, shot 63 after thinning one of his drives into the rough and scrambling a par. He then had a run of birdies, which Retief can do. So there's just a couple of weeks in the British summer that are special with Wimbledon, Test cricket, particularly the Ashes and the Open Championship, which is a wonderful event. And they put on a very good event here. Anderson decides that around the wicket might be a better idea, and he's coming in towards North. North goes across his stumps and defends well on the offside. And talking of entertainment, I have to say, last night was a wonderful night for a lot of Australians in town. There are quite a few here. There were 300 or 400 at City Hall for an event organised for them to go out and be entertained. And they were, first by Jeff Miller, who's without doubt the most amusing chairman of selectors, I would have thought, in history. Very, very funny man. As again, North gets a good ball from Anderson, and he's playing and missing outside the off stump. That gets the crowd going as Anderson beat the outside edge. There was Jeff Miller, there was a comedian, Andy Bickle and Michael Kasparovich. They had a choir singing at the end, but for the Australian fans, the highlight, without doubt, was the appearance of Ricky Ponting, who turned up for half an hour to be interviewed by Rodney Hogg, and I thought that was terrific. That said a fair bit about Ponting, that he could commit himself to that sort of time in the middle of a test match and come and speak to his fans, and he did it really well. So that's just another one of the many highlights of coming to Cardiff.
Yeah.
It'll bring the Aussies back again, and a few others. It's 5 for 502.
You're enjoying it more than Stuart Broad then?
Yes. Yes, it's North 60 and Haddin 19. We've had a couple of quiet overs here. As Australia pushed on by just 23. But the last 2 overs have been maidens. Here's Broad. He's bowling to Haddin, and Haddin again is defending. All bowled by Broad. And Haddin's waiting, hoping that he's going to get something to flash his bat at. He's done it once or twice. And you would think that Broad might tempt him with another bouncing delivery. He's just got to get it in the right spot. He picked up Michael Clarke's wicket last night with one that just skidded off a bit and flicked the glove. 2 men back as he comes in, and Haddin goes into his stumps and defends down the pitch. So it's a careful, watchful batting. And I'm just slightly surprised that England have got this field. I'm sure Ian Chappell's got a view or two about it. No man at slip, Ian. Good morning.
Morning, James. Hello to all the listeners. Yeah, the problem is that when Broad turns around and just before he comes into bowl, he looks down and he can't really see many ways of getting him out.
As he bowls to Haddin, he bowls on the stumps, and he's defending away on the offside. It just seems to be a sort of containing policy here at the moment, and the occasional challenge to Haddin by dropping short. And it was again a top edge it somewhere or get away with a boundary.
Yeah, just looking at the tactics for the first half hour, you'd sort of sum it up by saying, well, England looking to contain, as you mentioned, try and slow the Australian scoring. The Australians look to me to be trying to build a really big lead.
Broad goes in, Haddin drives on the rise, down to mid-off, another dot ball, 5 for 502.
Yeah, a really big lead, like 150, 175, maybe even 200, hoping that that in itself will pressure the Englishmen to make some mistakes when they bat second, in the hope that Australia can bowl them out very cheaply and basically not have to bat again. I think it's a difficult way to win a match, but probably they see it as their only way.
Broad again, Haddin punches to the onside, but he finds mid-wicket this time. He can't get past Collingwood out there. So this field with a deep point, gully cover mid-off, mid-on, short mid-on, and the mid-wicket and 2 men out. And at the moment, Haddin's struggling to get Broad away even for a single.
I think it's quite a good field, except for the deep point and the deep square leg. I think one of those could come into the slip and one come in and save a single.
Broad again at Haddin, and Haddin's forward defending, just playing the ball on its merits. And another maiden, 3 in a row. 3 in a row. Thank you, Malcolm. Yes, it's 5 for 502.
The thing that bemuses me a little with some of the field placings, the point guy is almost an automatic. They push him back before batsmen have even started to hit the ball there, and yet edges all run down to third man for 4 on a fairly regular basis. The captains don't seem to be too bothered by that, but they're desperate to save 4s to the point area and to the square leg area, both of which are going to come from bad balls. Good balls are going to be edged to third man. I think I'd rather put the third man in than have the point out and say to the bowler, don't bowl bad balls. If you don't want 4s to be hit out in the point area, don't bowl bad balls. I think you've got to make a decision as a captain, whether you place the field for bad balls or you say to the bowler, don't bowl them.
Anderson bowls now and North defends. A la the field we have here, I mean, the man at deep point, he's really there for, you would think, mainly the bad ball.
Yeah, exactly.
Either stick him at third slip or find third man.
Or just, I wouldn't be much happier with him at third man. Preferably at this stage, I'd bring him up to point to save the single to keep North on strike. And certainly, if you place fields for bad bowling, I'm sure you bring on some bad bowling.
Around the wicket again, Anderson bowls a shocker. He went for a change of pace. That has to be a wide, Alimdar.
Gee.
Why isn't that a wide? That was full, wide. I know Marcus North's a tall fellow, but I think he got away with that.
He couldn't have hit it with the light tower pole.
He's gone for a change of pace, and where's it gone past? Well, it has pitched inside the return crease beyond it, but it was pretty wide. What's he going to try this time? The shorter ball, yep, and on the back foot, it's hit through the covers, out towards that man. who's protecting in the deep, and they'll take 2 on Cook's throw. Well run. Yep, it was punched through the covers. Cook came around, tried to throw the stumps down in there, but he didn't. But he didn't miss by all that much, as he had a ping from the deep. We can get a side on replay here. Oh, well, it bounced. It had to be a direct hit. So
would have helped if the bowler was behind the stumps. The bowler would have had a chance of actually taking the ball and whipping the bails off, and it would have been very close. But Jimmy Anderson was horribly placed.
He ended up knocking the bails off with his hand out of position, yes. 2 runs. Back over the wicket, Anderson bowls. Across it, the left-hander, and North ignores it. He's 62, 5 for 504.
I think sometimes, by giving into the bowler and giving him fieldsmen for bad bowling, you almost encourage bad bowling. You're almost saying to the bowler, well, I'll accept a few bad deliveries. I prefer the captain to go the other way and say, mate, I'm going to place this field. Now you better start bowling to it.
The trumpeter's away. Bit of entertainment for everybody as they watch Anderson bowl to North, and North slides forward and just caresses the ball away into the covers. The cheer wasn't for a magnificent piece of fielding by Collingwood, because he didn't have to do too much. It was for the entertainment being provided up in the stand. And that's one of the features of watching the game here. Every Ashes series in recent times in England. There's something going on in the crowd. Someone's dressed up. Someone's playing a trumpet or a bugle. Or sometimes someone's singing. All of them. Anderson bowls to North. North's forward again. Well, a directed delivery. And that's the end of the over. Ian, I'll leave you with a few thoughts about what's happening. 5 for 504. The rain's kept away so far. And Chris Martin-Jenkins is coming in alongside you.
Yeah, just continuing on Jim's point, you don't have to wait too long here in Cardiff for a musical interlude. Every break you'll have some person up singing, and as Jim just mentioned, we've got trumpeters in the crowd. But, they don't need much encouragement to break into song. They haven't had much to sing about. To England, I guess probably the most disturbing thing for England is the fact that they've, apart from a short spell where Anderson bowled really well with the second new ball, they really haven't got the ball to swing very much at all, and yet Hilfenhaus basically swung it most of the first day.
That's true, and you'd think it's a good morning for swing too. It's quite humid actually. In comes Broad and bowls dead straight and is pushed into the onside for a single by Haddin. No one saving the one at square leg. Panesar was back, and so they took another easy single. 504, 545. A famous score, 505. Holmes and Sutcliffe's record opening stand, I think, originally. Now broken.
What did Lara get? 501, Lara, was it?
Yes.
It's a lot of runs for one bloke, isn't it? It's a lot of runs for a team, never mind one bloke.
It's just unbelievable, really. The Trent Test match ended at a sort of early afternoon, and I zipped down the motorway and saw the last part of it.
What did the guy drop him at? How many was he when he was dropped?
I think before he got to 20.
Oh, gee.
And as I'm sure you know, he said he'll probably go on and get 100 now. 555. Yes, sorry, Blaise. Thank you. Well done. Not 505. In comes Broad round the wicket outside the off stump. That one bounces in the rough, I think, and pops up. And if North had been nibbling at that, well, actually, the catch might not have carried to the wicketkeeper because it really bobbled. But signs that there could be a bit of difficulty tomorrow for batsmen. There's quite a lot of rough at both ends of the wicket, or the pitch. North has shown excellent judgment, however, when to play and when not. There's a ring circling him on the offside as Broad from round the wicket bowls outside the off stump. I suppose you could call this a bit negative by England, but understandable in the circumstances. They've got a slip, a gully, a short point and a short extra cover, or short cover and short extra cover. So it's a little like a Sabutio table field. Broad fair-haired from the River Taffin, both short, and gives North the chance to cut, but he misses the chance, stubs it into the ground, and there is a gap back on the cover boundary. He could have got that through if he'd middled that.
He's looked very secure, Marcus North. He struggled a little bit early in the tour for form, but found really good form in the last practice match, and he's carried it on here. And he really hasn't looked troubled much at all.
No. Broad comes running in with purpose. He looks fit enough today, Broad, and that's driven to mid-on. There's no run because Pietersen's in the path of it. He hurls the ball at Pryor. Andrew Flintoff is going to come in to bowl for the first time today. So Anderson has come off. Didn't get much swing, as Ian said. 2 for 89. He started at 2 for 81, so 5 overs this morning. None for 8. And Flintoff, England hope, will make something happen. It's a fairly cautious field as he runs in and bowls on about middle and off to the right-handed Haddin, who plays a length ball back towards mid-off, and Flintoff cuts it off. 5:05 for 5. So the lead is 70. Now this is the 150th over of the Australia innings. Clouds quite high at the moment, and it's warm, pleasant morning in Cardiff.
Yeah, it's reasonably bright, isn't it, really?
Yes,
when you think that the clouds are right above the ground are reasonably dark, but as you say, they're very high.
Flintoff again from our commentary box end, the Cathedral Road end, bowls on a length, and Haddin drives him pleasantly to mid-off, but can't get it past Broad. Broad, the only other bowler we've seen so far today, 1 for 118 at the moment.
Yeah, when you think back to Jimmy Anderson's spell, it was a tidy spell this morning, but it was really only, in fact, I think it was virtually his last delivery where he went right through Haddin and really hurried him. Other than that, they played him quite comfortably.
They have. He'll be hoping for a bit more zip in the Lord's pitch. In comes Flintoff likewise, and he's driven beautifully for 4 between the bowler and mid-off. Excellent shot from Haddin, dead straight, right out of the middle of the bat. Not hit blisteringly hard, but hard enough. One of the best shots he's played, and he goes to 24.
That's the problem when you get into a containing mode as a fielding side. If you're up against really good players, and Haddin is he's as good a player as Matt Pryor is with the bat for England, and you won't contain him. You've really got to get him out because he'll keep finding a way to hit boundaries.
He waits now with a nice settled stance and goes right across and behind this next ball from Flintoff, pushes it a few yards up the pitch, and then goes for a little quick march to short square leg.
It reminds me a bit of the situation in the 70s where England had Alan Knott as a wicketkeeper and we had Rodney Marsh, and they basically used to cancel each other out with the bat. The number of times both of them would get runs when their team really needed them. And I think we might find a bit of that with Matt Pryor and Brad Haddin, because they're both very similar type of players, both very aggressive, very confident batsmen.
Flintoff bowls on the off stump and had him back and across, and both have clearly improved as wicket keepers, neither perhaps in the Knott or even at his best the Marsh class.
No, definitely not in that class. No, Alan Knott was he was a genius, particularly standing up to Derek Underwood on damp pitches. I mean, that was damn near impossible to bat against. So I don't know how Knott he used to. I suppose he saw him a lot with Kent.
Yes.
But even so, he was a genius at that. And Rodney Marsh was a brilliant wicketkeeper.
Away goes Flintoff, surging in again, and bowls on the leg stump, and I think that went off the thigh of Haddin. They've got a run. No signal yet from umpire Alim Dar. Gives the cap to Flintoff. No, it's off glove perhaps. And talking of extra bounce at Lord's, Steve Harmison, I don't know whether Jimmy Whittaker, one of the England selectors, is still watching him today. He was yesterday, but he's taken 3 wickets for Durham against Yorkshire this morning. Yorkshire are 80 for 4 in reply to Durham's 178. That's one ground. They're playing at Headingley, aren't they? Not, yep. That is one ground where I think we can expect a result either way in this series.
What, Headingley?
Yeah. I think Lords is the other one where, well, Lords in the Oval you would expect to get a result, so probably those you've said 2-1 or 3-0 are likely to be closest to the mark.
Lords, I was very impressed with the bounce in Lords during the T20 tournament and the Oval and the Oval as well. In fact, talking to Mike Hunt during those games there, I said to him, I think you've got a wonderful coverage of grass at Lords. It looked a really good pitch to me.
Here's Broad continuing, quite a long spell. He comes in and bowls on about the middle stump, and his arms go up in hope there as Haddin perhaps was a wee bit early, I don't know, or anyway, he just played it down a little uncertainly to Cook at fine leg and took a single. 511 for 5. Australia proceeding at a decent pace, but not an electrifying one. And they're probably, well, they won't be assuming it's going to rain, but they're obviously aware that it's probably going to rain from around lunch. That's the expectation. That little circle goes round north again on the offside as Broad comes in round the wicket, and he drives through the first ring and through the second, and it's 4 good runs to the extra cover boundary. So North continues to bat with immense sense here and technical expertise too. He's 66 not out, 515 for 5.
I can remember talking to my brother Greg when Greg was coaching South Australia, so it'd have to be 6 years ago at least, I would think. And he said then that Marcus North is the best young batsman in Australia, and that's, as I say, at least 6 years ago.
Right.
I think Greg was quite annoyed that it took so long for him to get into the Australian side.
Yeah. Played for 5 English counties. Here's Broad and bowls very close to the off stump, and North left it alone, and then with just an element of slight guilt there, he sort of went further across and protected the off stump with his pads, which I don't think he was actually doing as the ball passed him.
Once again, with that cover drive, you see an example of how hard it is to stop really good players hitting boundaries. You can place as defensive a field as you like, they'll still find a way.
Absolutely. Broad bowls again. That again pops as it pitches outside the off stump. I presume in the rough. He's bowling from quite a wide angle. He's keeping a good line actually, Broad, because the merest suspicion of going towards middle, and he'll be picked off for 4. There are only 2 men on the leg side. Another burst of trumpet from Billy Cooper. Broad circles at the far end. Bowls on a full length to North, who brushes it away into the big gap at mid-wicket. Should get 2 here and does comfortably, as Cook has to go round from behind square. Good throw over the bails to the eager Pryor. 517 for 5.
Yeah, see, you're in a containing mood, England, but already in this over you've conceded 6 comfortable runs without really looking like picking up a wicket. That's the problem. If you're conceding 6 but you're looking like taking a wicket and giving yourself a chance to take wickets, to me that's a bit more acceptable as a captain. But if you're not putting any risk in the batting, I don't see the point of it.
Broad comes in and bowls, and a lovely little delicate late nudge by North gets him another 4, 10 off the over. They just waited for that to come level with his body and ran it down past slip for 4. Not strictly speaking a late cut in at the bat, didn't really come right down over the top of the ball, but clever shot. And 4 runs. So North really playing very well. He's 72 not out. It's 521 for 5. And I take your point absolutely. I wonder how many more or less runs they would have got against the spinners if they bowled this morning.
Yeah, if you're conceding at 10 and over and you're not giving yourself a chance to take wickets, you're really going nowhere as a fielding side. In fact, you're going out the back door quick.
Flintoff with 5 one-saving fielders, a slip and a gully, bowls and is driven to mid-on by Haddin, fielded by Pietersen, and no run. Pietersen, as always, chucks the ball all the way down the other end of the ground to the wicketkeeper instead of just lobbing it 5 yards maximum to the bowler. Flintoff getting something tidied up by Alim Dar, the umpire. Comes back at his back ramrod straight, or indeed redwood tree straight. Has a cheery chat to Broad and turns and runs in again past Alim Dar to bowl to Haddin, who this time goes back to a short ball and pulls it away to square leg for a single. Not quite out of the middle. No ball called by Alim Dar.
He's mistimed a couple of attempted pull shots, Brad Haddin. One of them was a little top edge that went safely down to fine leg for 4. He's generally a pretty good puller and hooker. Broad, when he was bowling short to Haddin, appeared to me as though he was going for extra height. That was the one that he mistimed, was probably even a little bit above head height. Flintoff on that occasion just jammed him with a bit of extra pace.
Yeah, 5.23 for 5. Has he got out hooking and pulling? They obviously seem to think he might do.
It'll cost you a few to get him, I reckon. He's pretty good player with that shot.
Flintoff bowls just outside the off stump, and that's a slightly careless stroke by North in that he didn't really get his back foot across and flailed at it and missed it. A rare mistake by Marcus North, taken by Pryor, but no touch.
He's got good concentration, Marcus North, as you quite rightly say, Christopher. He hasn't made too many mistakes. That's a rare one, but his concentration has been good, and all the Australian batsmen have played within their capabilities.
They have. Flintoff round the wicket, bowls a fuller length, and North just very slightly drags it to mid-on off the front foot. There's a slip and a gully, a deep cover, extra cover, shortish extra cover, and mid-off, so not theoretically many scoring options through the offside. He's got a mid-on, square leg back and long leg back, the long leg being Panesar, who is just going through the motions of bowling some ghost balls, so maybe he's got the word that he's going to have a go. In comes Flintoff, bowls a ball that keeps North pinned to his crease on a length on about middle stump. North, tall left-hander. I think he may be the only. Malcolm was. He's got onto Twitter for the first time today, and somebody asked him if North is the first compass point to play Test cricket.
Yes,
I think he is. I don't think, oddly enough, there's been a West or a South or a
Southgate. Westgate, Southerton,
Southey. Yep.
Eastwood. Yes, that was
then goes Flintoff, goes outside the off stump, left alone. Raymond East got close, but never quite made it. Sam Northeast might yet play Test cricket.
Has there been a South?
Well, I don't think there has, oddly enough. No, it's not an uncommon surname.
West? We had a broadcaster, very famous broadcaster.
We did, Peter.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think there has. Away goes Flintoff again. He bowls to North, who drives on the up. Good stroke, but a good stop by Anderson towards the edge of the square at extra cover. Denies him runs, and Flintoff succeeded in quietening things down a bit. He also took quite a long time to bowl that over, which probably was not entirely accidental. 523 for 5. Television cameras closing in on the clouds, but they're still some way away from the arrival of the rain here. So far today we've had 13 overs. 5.23 for 5 is the score. It's noon, which means it's Henry Blofeld time. We'll join you in.
Thanks, Christopher. Very good driver through the offside, Marcus North. That last ball, he slapped it beautifully from Flintoff. It took an excellent piece of fielding from Jimmy Anderson, who was skidding across one of the side pitches on his knees to save a boundary. But he's looked very good when driving through the offside. In fact, he's looked pretty secure all round, Marcus North.
It's been a wonderful innings, hasn't it? I mean, he really looks a complete player. I mean, you can always see the coaching book there, can't you?
Yes, he's a very correct player, and he's been very watchful outside off stump. Sometimes left-handers, they love to flash outside the off stump, but he's done in fact, the one in the last over from Flintoff is about the only one I can think of where he's been beaten outside the off stump.
I suppose a lot of where left-handers put it down, say, okay, it's the angle of delivery, don't they? You know,
you've always got to have an excuse, Henry.
Of course you have, absolutely.
Can't be beaten by the bowler.
Quite right. It's Monty Panesar now. Round the wicket from the River Taff end in. He bowls that to Haddin, who plays it slowly down to mid-on, and they run an easy single. So Haddin goes along now to 28, and the total to 524 for 5. And mercifully, so far, the weather has behaved pretty well. Away to our left over there, which I think is the east, Malcolm Ashton was giving us a lesson in the compass points earlier this morning. It does look a bit grey over there, and I think we'll be jolly lucky if we get away with it. The 50 standards up off 93 balls. North has 19 of them, Haddin has 28 of them, and there have been 3 extras to complete the 50. And Monty now is going over the wicket from the River Taff end, and he's going to bowl to Marcus North. 2 men round the bat, a slip, a silly point, and also a short mid-wicket, another attacking fielder, and here comes Monty in, bowls. And North deliberately with bottom hand there plays that from outside the off stump straight to Collingwood there at short mid wicket, and there is no run. And Monty in again. He's up to the wicket now. He bowls, and forward there comes North, running that to backward point, and there is no run. It's the fielder. Monty much the best of the 2 spinners yesterday, I think, really, don't you?
Far and away. Swann was very disappointing yesterday. I thought he'd be an important part of the England attack.
And Monty in again, bowls, and that's swept there by North, and it's going to be fielded by Bopara, who moves very quickly across the ground, deep forward square leg, and sends in a low throw to Pryor, who doesn't take it, and it's picked up behind him at slip, and there is just the single there, so 525 for 5, and 73 now. To North, and Haddin, the right-hander, is down in strike. Slips, as I say, forward short leg and a short extra cover, and here comes Panesar, bowls, forward comes Haddin, just politely pushing it back down the onside of the pitch to the bowler. A cheer goes up from the crowd, cheering dot balls, shows what we've got to in English bowling now. And here comes Panesar once more, bowls, and that was a little bit quicker, played away nicely by Haddin to the right of mid-on. They go for 1. There's a slight bit of misfielding there, and but it's quickly recovered there by Anderson, and they have just the single. So 576 for 5, and it's 73 to North, 29 to Haddin. And now, for Radio 4 listeners, let us go to those in peril on the sea, the shipping forecast. And for the rest of our listeners, we will carry on talking. Drinks have come, so we won't be telling you anything. When I say we won't be talking informatively about the action, we'll be talking reflectively about what has gone on this morning, Ian.
Yeah, I think England would be a little disappointed with the session this morning. They haven't troubled the batsmen too often. It's a morning where you would think there'd be some swing around for the bowlers, but nothing at all much to speak of for Jimmy Anderson. 1 ball that he hurried on through Brad Haddin, but the rest of the time both Haddin and North have looked extremely secure. It appears now as though tactically England are looking to try and contain as much as possible and prolong or slow down the Australian scoring. The Australians, to me, look as though they've set themselves to try and produce a big lead, something in excess of 150, in the hope that they can put a bit of panic into the England batting in the second innings and provoke a collapse.
Yeah, a couple of quick wickets, isn't it? Even when you're 150 ahead, a couple of quick wickets can alter the whole thing.
Very quickly, yeah.
Indeed.
And particularly if you go out there to bat thinking, oh, well, we've just got to save this game, you can get yourself into trouble.
Well, this is it. You forget the importance of trying to control the bowling, and the bowlers therefore stay on top, don't they?
Exactly. You've got to, even when you are trying to save a match, you've still got to go out there and look to score runs. So you're giving the opposing captain something to think about. You're giving the bowlers something to think about. But if you let the bowlers bowl the way they want to, you're in trouble.
Yeah. I bet the England players are all gathered there in a group having their drinks, and I should think they're all looking rather longingly away to the east, where the clouds are getting pretty dark. But if they look the other way to the south, it's or to the southwest, it looks fairly light. But obviously rain is about. Ian Chappell disappears, and Sir Geoffrey Boycott takes his place. Good morning, Jeff.
Morning, Henry.
Are you in good nick today?
Well, I am. I'm not sure England's bowlers are.
No. And what would your solution? What have they got to do now?
Go to the pictures. There's more sense in that. There'll be more enjoyment. What I've seen this morning, the pitch is flat. They haven't hurried up the batsmen. The runs are coming comfortably. With it's all soporific cricket, isn't it? They're just in control. And I know it's a flat pitch, but we haven't seemed to be able to make them hurry up. There's been the odd spell with Anderson and Flintoff, but it's just more of the same this morning than what we had most of the time yesterday.
And Broad again was disappointing this morning, wasn't he?
Yeah.
I mean, he was bowling all over the place.
He can't seem to do a third seamer's job, which is to block up an end, to bowl to a defensive field, to block up, to shut up shop, keep the runs down, make it tight. Maybe they'll do something silly. You've got to be able to do that. Trevor Bailey was good at it. Mike Hendrick was brilliant at it. Absolutely brilliant he was. But no, they don't seem to be able to do it.
And we welcome Radio 4 listeners back to Cardiff, where you've missed nothing except the drinks. England having rather a long drink interval, feeling a bit gloomy, I dare say, and well, they might, because they've really hardly been in the contest at all. There's not any real competition out there at the moment. The Australian batsmen are having it all their own way, and it's rather sad to say that, especially when at the start, before the series started, one really thought England had a good chance of going one up here, and the only side who might go one up at this moment is Australia. And as I say, it is the weather that England may be looking for to see them out of this hole, and the forecast isn't good for this afternoon, and indeed
getting better, Henry.
Is it getting better?
Well, I just said that it's not coming in as quick as they thought, so it's not estimated now till 3 o'clock.
Oh, is it?
Yes, more dodgy, and I hope it doesn't rain at all. If England are going to get out of jail, they should have to get out of it with their own ability, not through the look of the weather. And I've always believed that, with whatever team it is, even when I played. Got to go out there and do your job.
I think that's absolutely fair, and I think there are a lot of people in this England side who jolly well haven't done their job, even if they know what their job should have been, which I'm sure they would have done with Flower and Strauss as coach and captain. But there's been an awful lot of disappointment. Flintoff is now going to bowl again. Malcolm Ashton will give me the bowling figures, and I will. But Flintoff has gone. He's well over the 100 mark now. He's taken 1 for 111. Nelson, 31 overs, 3 maidens. Broad, really the worst of all, 32 overs, 6 maidens, 1 for 129. And it has been immensely disappointing. And here comes Flintoff again, in now, bowling to Haddin. He's up to the wicket, he bowls to the right-hander outside the off-stump, he plays no stroke, and that ball came back into the batsman after it had gone past the stumps. Pryor went to his left and took, and the score remains on 526 for 5, so Australia now 91 runs ahead with plenty of power to add.
Yeah, and one of the concerns with plenty of power to add is they're going to carry on batting for quite a while, that Flintoff's already done early 30s of overs. Now, people saying about not bowling him too much.
This is a point in a back-to-back test match coming up at Lord's next Thursday.
Yep.
And Flintoff it is, in, past Alim Dar, the umpire, bowls outside the off-stump, and Haddin shoulders arms, as to the manner born, bat going up like a periscope above his head, and the ball goes through again to Pryor. But no, I think you're absolutely right about the weather. I mean, it's Of course, sides sometimes are lucky. I mean, you remember when England were really saved at Brisbane not all that long ago, that incredible storm. Do you remember that? We were on the air at the time, Vic Marks, I remember Jeff Thompson. It was quite extraordinary. And I remember the dear Boggo Road jail in the middle distance disappearing completely from view. Here's Flintoff. He's in now. He bowls outside the off stump. Again, no stroke from Haddin. Short, lifted just a little. But there's no real threat there. There hasn't been any sort of tactical, strategic threats, and there's been no actual threats by the bowlers. The batsmen have been in no trouble whatever. And that is what has been so disappointing. And I suppose when one comes down to it, the spinners have been very disappointing because they've been unable to do any sort of a containing job, a tight job, keep the batsmen, at the same end to work on them. Swann has had, I should think, probably much his worst test match for England. Panesar has bowled better, but of course one hoped that with Swann, the off-spinner, and Panesar, the left-arm spinner, they were going to bowl in tandem, and this was going to give England a great advantage. But it just hasn't happened that way, has it?
No, I think the pitch is so slow that if you bat with common sense, it's not too difficult to bat. With respect, while people may criticise the England bowlers, I think we ought to be heaping more criticism on the England batsmen who gave the wickets away when they were in, some of them.
They found some weird and wonderful ways of getting out, didn't they? My goodness. Flintoff it is. He's in now. He bowls Haddin, and Haddin gets a run. It wasn't a very elegant stroke. His bottom hand was in control, and Pietersen coming in there from mid-on tries a crafty piece of footwork, but Alex Ferguson wouldn't have much fancied that. The ball went nowhere near the stumps.
No, he won't be being centre forward for my team, that's for sure.
No, he won't, will he?
Not with them shots. He'll be missing it from 6 yards out.
Haddin was trying to push that on the offside. Bottom hand came into play. It was perhaps a little bit slower from Flintoff, and he didn't see it. But anyway, he got a single. So he goes now to 30, and the total to 327 for
I would have bought Collingwood from the river end, because yesterday he pitched 2 in the footmarks and they went for byes, didn't they?
Went 4 byes each, they did indeed. Flintoff round the wicket, in, bowls there to North. North does give it no ball called. North goes back, just gets a single to Cook there at wideish mid-on, and for 529 now for 5, and Marcus North goes on to 74. What an accomplished player he looks.
Well, I tell you this, if I were an Australian selector, they must be smiling very nicely. I mean, I know, for instance, Ian Chappell has criticised them for not bringing an extra batsman. This kid made 100 in his first test. He's only played 2 against South Africa, hasn't he?
Right. Here's Flintoff again. In, bowls at Haddin, who goes to pull that round the corner. Pryor goes after it, diving, can't stop it. It may have been pad, it may have been glove. It was pad. Leg by, signalled by Aleem Dar. And it was Monty, full of the joys of spring, who fielded down there at fine leg. So 529 for 5.
And he's on course for another 100.
Well, Ian was saying a few minutes ago that he remembered talking a few years ago to his brother Greg when he was coaching South Australia. I think it was 6 years ago, and he said then that North was the best young player in Australia. And Greg Chappell was quite upset, really, that the national selectors didn't settle upon him sooner than they did. Flintoff it is again, in, running away from this end, bowls. Oh, and that one had North exactly in 2 minds. He was going to play a stroke, then he got out of it quite comfortably in the end with a twiddle of the bat. He brought it across the line and out of the way. But if you have to look upon situations like that as moments of hope for England, it really does show at the stage we've got to, I'm afraid. 530 for 5 at the end of the over. It's 30 to Haddin and 74 to North, and the pale sunshine comes through. So all this talk of rain on Saturday is really looking at my eye and Betty Martin at the moment, isn't it?
I bet North's happy. 74 not out, and he's thinking, nice little bit of sunshine, another 45 minutes to lunch. Nice little 100 here coming up.
You'd be thinking like that, wouldn't you, Geoffrey?
Definitely. I won't be thinking about the rain. I'm thinking nice little 100 here.
Yes. But then you thought about that from the first ball of your innings, didn't you?
I always lacked a bit of confidence, Henry. That was my problem.
Here comes Panesar now from the River Taff end. He bowls, and Haddin's forward, running the ball out a yard or 2 on the offside, and it's Pietersen who comes in from short extra cover and fields. Geoffrey, you weren't short of confidence.
I was.
Were you?
Terrible.
Oh, my goodness. Well, you've made up the deficiency since. Here comes Panesar bowls, and that's played down by Haddin to mid-on, Anderson fields, and there is no run. It's grey. You can just see the hills over there, the tops of the hills, which one couldn't early on. It's a Pennine situation, this a little bit, and I'll tell you why in a moment. Panesar bowls. Oh, my goodness, that one went past Haddin. He played forward. It may have just turned a frack past the bat, and Pryor took it, whipped off the bails, as is his wont, replaces the bails. Umpire Alim Dar comes in and looks and sees that they're all right and goes back. They tell you, well, we haven't got time for the Pennines yet, because here comes Panesar, next ball, in. Bowls now to Haddin, forward Panesar fields. When you watch cricket at Headingley, they always say if you can see the Pennines, it's about to rain. You can't see them, it is raining. And
correct.
The Welsh hills here, I don't know if they say quite the same, but we certainly couldn't see them earlier this morning, but we can now, they're quite clear. And Panesar, it is in, round the wicket, he bowls, and Haddin just sort of is forward, a little bit crouched, as though that one came through a little bit low. Played it out to Pietersen at short extra cover, and there was no run. And Panesar getting through his over quickly, as you would expect. He's up to the wicket now, he bowls, and Haddin makes room and plays a lovely stroke down behind square on the offside. Bopara has a long chase, and they get a couple of runs. Bopara went from backward point to third man. It was a lovely, delicate little touch, that, wasn't it?
Yeah, he just bowled nicely, and then the last ball, he's kept him quiet, beaten him with one, and the last ball, he just tried to bowl it a little slower, and so he gave the batsman more time to get back and late cut him. And 3 off the over went. Really, what he should have been saying, and the captain, they should have got together and say, I'll make sure he doesn't score. I bowl a maiden.
Right.
I bowl the same ball, same way. And that, to me, has been symptomatic of a lot of England's bowling. When you've got a new ball, you've got an opportunity to get people out, that's what you do. But we all know that the ball goes softer and older, and there comes moments you have to defend. They just haven't been able to do it. And I'm sorry, leadership comes from the captain in your tactics. And he's not a good captain. He just isn't. He just doesn't have the feel for it. He's a lovely lad. He'll I don't see how he's going to be that much better than Pietersen. He'll be a different character. Pietersen's an unusual character. He's going to ruffle feathers and, he's going to not be everybody's cup of tea. But in terms of tactically, I don't see what we've gained.
Jeffrey,
we've gained nothing.
Let me ask you another thing. How true is it, really, that a captain is to a large extent only as good as his bowlers allow him to be?
It has a half-truth. But let's look at some of the fields he said.
Yes.
They've been appalling, and not bowling Flintoff at the start of play against Katich, who he got out in 4 years ago. See what psychological damage is still there.
And not opening with Flintoff when they started the innings.
Absolutely, yeah. He just that's not rocket science, that's schoolboy science.
Well, there we are. It's going to be Swann who's coming.
Don't anybody email me telling you learn. You don't learn. You either have it, you have a feel for it, and instinct. You get better at it.
It's instinct, isn't it?
Yes, and then you can get better because the more you do it, but you either have a feel for it to start with, or you don't.
Like Michael Vaughan, who had a feel for it.
He had a feel for it immediately, instinctively, like Mike Brearley, like Raymond Dillingworth, like Brian Close, like Douglas Jardine.
And it's Swann now round the wicket. He bowls there to North. North drives through. It's a net. It goes down to long off. Pietersen is there, and they take just the single. So 533 for 5, and North now goes on to 75. Douglas Jardine, that's a contentious name.
Well, he did well. He'd never had captaincy before, and it was thrust on him, wasn't he? Percy Chapman was told to resign at Surrey, by Lord Harris, because we wanted your job to be given to Douglas, so he was a county captain at Surrey, and then he could captain England. And what about Len Hutton? Yeah. Len Hutton wasn't captain at York. She was never captain.
No.
And and suddenly they pluck him out. He did pretty good in Australia.
When Jardine was chosen, he was at Winchester, and Rockley Wilson, the Yorkshire leg spinner who taught at Winchester, when he heard that Jardine had been appointed, he took his scratched his Adam's apple, as he always did, and he said, well, we may win the Test series, but we'll probably lose at Dominion.
He's probably right.
And we very nearly did, didn't we,
Very
Australia?
prescient, that man.
I know. And here's Swann over the wicket now. But there's a big appeal there for...
Not out.
Not out.
Not out.
He was a long way forward, probably outside the line of the off stump. And these umpires, who are very much not outers, there was no way that one was going to be given. The light sun back with us. Swann is in, up to the wicket. He's there now. He bowls, and forward comes Haddin. I think there was a bit of pad in that, and it rolled back down the pitch to the bowler, Swann. Slip, silly point, and a short mid-wicket are the attacking fielders. Otherwise, you've got backward point, extra cover mid-off on the offside, and a deep forward square leg and deep backward square leg, and a long on the leg side. Swann is in, bowls, and... Oh, my goodness. Haddin drove. He missed that. And Pryor whipped off the bails, asked the question of umpire Dottrove, who says not out and comes in and replaces the bails. I don't think the back foot was lifted for a second there. But it was one of the very few occasions when the ball's got past the bat today.
Well, he tossed it up wide and induced him to drive when it was a little bit wide, and it turned between bat and pad but didn't hit the stumps. And Dottrove saying not out, that's his favourite saying.
I don't think he says anything, actually. I think he's even more economical than that. He just keeps his mouth shut.
He hardly ever says out.
That's absolutely right. And here's Swann. He's in again. Ball gives that air, and that's driven by Haddin. Doesn't time it at all. And it goes down there to Flintoff at mid-off, and there is no run. Seagulls flying around rather lower today. I don't know whether they sense rain coming or what. The trees looking lovely, the crowd colourful, shirt sleeves, most of them. It's a splendid sight, this. And here is Swann, bowls, and forward comes Haddin, just steers this bottom with a bit of bottom hand quite deliberately into the gap between short mid-wicket and the bowler, and Pietersen comes in off the boundary and fields, and they get a single. So Haddin goes to 33.